My name is Lauren McCardel. I'm the Executive Director here at the Berman Museum. I am responsible for setting the vision for the work that we do here at the museum, bringing organization and infrastructure to our day-to-day work and prioritizing strategies for how we can be connecting with various diverse audiences around campus, students, faculty, and beyond campus as well. So with the neighboring communities of Collegeville and Montgomery County school districts, how we can really be thinking strategically about the kinds of content that we are creating in order to create meaningful engagement with those audiences. So I went to college as an undergraduate. I started off as a theater major and loved that, but pretty quickly began to understand that that probably wasn't the career path for me, despite being a theater lover. And so I began to sort of dabble around with other kinds of art classes and pretty quickly stumbled quite literally actually, into art history and loved the courses that I took as an undergraduate. And so I changed my major to art history, graduated with that degree from Messiah University, and then went on to do a master's in architectural history at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. When I was a graduate student, I spent some time working at a contemporary art museum in Savannah, and after I graduated, I moved back up north. I came to Philly and found my way to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, where I worked for a few years before coming to Temple University to work at the Tyler School of Art and Architecture. So that's where I come most recently from. My background is somewhat varied, from program development and management to fundraising and conceptualizing different kinds of opportunities for community engagement around the arts and thinking about ways to support those efforts in whatever kind of capacity I can do. So I'm doing my PhD in art history at the Tyler School of Art and Architecture at Temple University, and I'm focusing mostly on 19th century art and material culture, looking at Europe and the United States, and thinking about specifically where women during those periods were involved in creative production in areas both private and public, so both in the home and in places that were becoming increasingly industrialized throughout the 19th century and into the 20th century. So most recently I've been looking at things like embroidery and what were called friendship albums, books that women in the 19th century kept to hold memorabilia, really, whether that be drawings by their friends or poems, prose, different kinds of original or unoriginal content that a woman's friend might enter into her friendship album that she would keep with her as a way to appreciate and kind of commemorate those relationships. And so I think that kind of gets to one of my core areas of interest, which is how women's creativity was often looked at as being very sentimental or sometimes overly sentimental, but how there really was power in that. Women were sort of finding ways to claim their voices and build their own communities through different vehicles. So that's kind of what I've been looking at most recently. Starting something new is challenging. There are always challenges, I think, especially coming into a new institution, one like the Berman. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of history to familiarize myself with. There are a lot of exciting opportunities ahead of us. There are so many colleagues and peers around the college to meet and get to know and think about how we can be partnering and collaborating with. So, it will take a little bit of time, I think, to acclimate into this space and to get to know our supporters, the extended Berman family. But it's something that I'm really excited to do. And I'm excited to work with that community to really think deeply about how the work that we do here, the artists we work with, the exhibitions and programs we put on, how we're serving our community, how we're creating platforms for voices to be heard, for conversations and discourse to be had around important topics that are going to branch from discipline to discipline, that are really going to provide multiple access points from people from different backgrounds and different fields to come together around art, around exhibitions, around the programs that we're putting on to create community and to deepen and strengthen community. What I have to say about having worked in the arts for the past several years is that, while I've had the opportunity to meet and work with a lot of really interesting artists and practitioners, and to be involved in lots of kind of exciting exhibitions and programs, the most valuable takeaway for me has been the personal relationships that I've built with peers and colleagues in the institutions that I've worked at. I have made lifelong friendships with people who I've worked alongside in my various roles, who share the values that I have and who are just truly dedicated to making the arts accessible for people. And so, when I think through my closest friends, of which there are not many, I've met all of them in this field, and I feel very lucky about that. I hope that most people who come through our doors will feel welcomed, like they have a place here, like they have a voice that should be heard. I think sometimes it can be intimidating to enter a space where you may feel unfamiliar with the way things work or the objects that you're looking at and feel like you're meant to appreciate. And I would say to someone who felt that way, every person's perspective is as valuable as the next. Each of us is bringing our own background, our own experiences, and each of those perspectives is meaningful. And so I think coming with an open mind, and I think the ability to have discourse and be kind of vulnerable with one another, and with the understanding that the arts can bring us together, and it's only through shared conversation and that kind of trust building, I think, that institutions like this can create opportunities for us to come together in a way that can create and ignite real change. So what I hope people will understand is that we are a place for you. There's a place for you here. And each of us here is very excited to welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.